You don't need motivation. You need exposure to reality. Because the path you've chosen does not reward the supported. It rewards the self-directed. This road will remove people from your life without asking you first. Friends will fade. Support will dry up. Approval will become rare. Not because you failed, but because you stopped needing permission. Here is the Machiavellian truth most men never face. The world only supports what it can influence. The moment you become independent in thought, support turns into silence. And silence is not rejection, it is fear. This is not a speech for men who want comfort. This is not for men who need reassurance. This is training for men who are willing to become untouchable. You will be misunderstood, misjudged, labeled arrogant, cold, selfish. Let them speak. Their confusion is proof you've stepped outside the herd, and the herd always attacks what it cannot control. Masculine Stoicism begins here, where you stop explaining yourself, where you stop correcting misunderstandings, where you let results speak in a language no one can argue with. Understand this clearly. Respect is never given at the beginning. It is enforced at the end. If you are still listening, something inside you already knows. You were not built to be carried. You were built to carry pressure. Before we go any further, lock this mindset in public. Comment this now. I don't need permission. Say it once, then move in silence. Support is a luxury. Kings are built without it. If you are alone right now, understand this clearly. You are not behind. You are being shaped. Power does not grow in groups. It grows in isolation, where excuses have nowhere to hide. When no one is watching, you learn discipline. When no one is helping, you learn precision. When no one is defending you, you learn restraint. This is why the beginning is always silent. Machiavellian reality is unforgiving. Those who rise with support are owned by it. Those who rise alone answer to no one. You will feel invisible, undervalued, unacknowledged. Good. Invisibility is armor. While others perform for approval, you are building leverage. While they speak loudly, you observe quietly. While they wait to be chosen, you choose yourself. Do not complain about the absence of allies. Allies appear after dominance is established, never before. The world does not reward effort. It rewards results that cannot be ignored. Right now, you are laying foundations no one applauds. That is why they will be forced to respect them later. Remember this, crowds gather after the throne is secured, never before. If this mindset is settling in, mark it publicly. Comment this below. I don't wait to be chosen, then return to the work, because this crown is not given, it is endured into existence. The world is not cruel, it is efficient. It does not invest in uncertainty, it does not reward potential, it waits for proof. Understand this before resentment poisons your focus. Support is never about fairness. It is about control. People support what they can predict, what they can influence, what makes them feel safe. The moment your thinking sharpens, the moment your discipline separates you from the average, you become uncomfortable to be around. Not dangerous yet, but unpredictable. And unpredictability threatens weak hierarchies. This is why support disappears early, not because you are failing, but because you are no longer easy to place in a box. Machiavellian law, those rising without permission expose those who needed permission to rise. Your progress becomes a mirror, and most people hate what they see in it. They begin to test you, first with silence. They stop responding, stop asking, stop checking in. Silence is a calculation. They are watching to see if you break. Then comes subtle resistance, backhanded advice, concern, warnings disguised as care. They tell you to slow down, to be realistic, to wait your turn. This is not wisdom. This is fear dressed as reason. Because if you succeed alone, it destroys the comforting lie that support is required. Next comes doubt, not from you, but aimed at you. They question your methods, your motives, your character. They don't argue with results yet, because you're still building them. So they attack the one thing they can reach, your confidence. This is where most men collapse. They internalize the doubt. They seek reassurance. They explain themselves. That is the mistake. Power never explains, it observes. Understand the psychology at play. Support is a social investment. People wait until the return is guaranteed. They are not betting against you. They are waiting to see if you are worth backing after the risk is gone. This is why applause always comes late. History does not celebrate beginnings. It rewrites them after the outcome is known. Every respected figure was ignored first, dismissed second, mocked third. Only after dominance became undeniable did the crowd claim belief. This is why you must detach early. Do not chase support. Do not beg for recognition. Do not adjust your pace to make others comfortable. Comfort weakens momentum. Instead, use the absence of support as intelligence. It tells you exactly where you stand. It reveals who thinks independently and who waits for consensus. Those who vanish early would have betrayed you later. Those who hesitate now would have doubted you at the peak. Isolation filters weakness out of your future. This is not loneliness. The cold truth. If the world supported you at the beginning, you would owe it explanations forever. By withholding support, it unknowingly gives you freedom. Freedom to build without noise, freedom to move without interference, freedom to become something they cannot interrupt. Remember this rule. Respect is rented at the start. It is owned at the end. You are in the phase where ownership is forged. If you understand this, anchor it publicly. Comment this below. I build without witnesses. Let them see the words, then disappear back into the work. Silence is not emptiness. It is pressure. When you stop announcing your moves, you gain advantage. When you stop explaining yourself, you gain authority. When you stop reacting, you gain control. Most people talk to feel important. Power stays quiet to remain unpredictable. Machiavellian law is clear. What is visible can be interfered with. What is silent moves freely. Right now, silence is not a weakness in your life. It is your greatest asset. You don't broadcast your plans. You don't defend your decisions. You don't correct misunderstandings because explanations invite debate. Debate invites delay. Delay kills momentum. The world is trained to respond to noise. It overlooks quiet men until they are unavoidable. This is where discipline sharpens. You learn to sit with unanswered messages, unreturned respect, unrecognized effort, and instead of reacting emotionally, you redirect that energy into execution. Silence hardens focus. It forces you to confront yourself without distraction. No validation, no sympathy, no external fuel, only standards. This is where many fall apart. They mistake silence for rejection. They confuse lack of response with lack of value. They start seeking signs. That need exposes them. Understand this psychological truth. The one who needs to be heard has already surrendered leverage. Silence keeps others guessing. Guessing creates tension. Tension creates authority. When you don't explain, people fill the gaps themselves. They assume strategy. They assume depth. They assume strength. Let them. Never interrupt an assumption that benefits you. While they speculate, you build. While they talk, you move. While they wait for clarity, you create outcomes. This is how quiet men become feared, not through intimidation, but through consistency without commentary. You don't react to disrespect early. You note it. You don't seek revenge. You accumulate leverage. Silence gives you time. Time gives you positioning. Positioning gives you control. And control is always louder than words. Remember this, those who speak too much reveal their limits. Those who act without speaking redefine the limits. Your silence is not passive, it is deliberate restraint. You are not hiding, you are loading weight. When the results arrive, explanations become irrelevant. Because success does not argue, it concludes. If this is settling into your thinking, mark it. Comment this below, my silence is intentional. Then return to it, because the next section is where patience stops being passive and starts becoming dominance. Discipline when no one is watching. Discipline is easy when eyes are on you. Anyone can perform under observation. Real discipline begins when there is no audience, no praise, no consequences, no reward in sight. This is where power separates from potential. Most men rely on pressure to stay consistent, deadlines, expectations, fear of judgment. Remove those and they collapse. But when you are building without support, there is no one watching, which means there is nowhere to hide. Every skipped action is your choice. Every delay is self-inflicted. Every excuse is exposed. This is why solitude is dangerous for the undisciplined and transformative for the controlled. Machiavellian truth. A man who governs himself cannot be governed by others. When no one checks on you, you learn to check yourself. When no one demands results, you demand standards. When no one enforces structure, you become the structure. This is where habits turn into identity. You do the work even when it feels meaningless. You show up even when progress is invisible. You maintain order even when chaos would be easier. Not because someone expects it, but because you do. This builds something rare, internal authority. Internal authority does not depend on mood. It does not negotiate with comfort. It does not ask for permission. It moves because it has decided to. Most men live externally regulated lives. They behave based on reward and punishment. Take those away, and they drift. You are learning to operate without those crutches. That is why this phase feels heavy. There is no applause to refuel you, no immediate feedback to reassure you, only repetition and restraint. This is intentional. The world does not respect intensity. It respects consistency. Anyone can work hard for a week. Few can remain disciplined for years without recognition. That is why discipline without witnesses creates inevitability. Every day you act correctly without validation, you are compounding leverage, not visible leverage, internal leverage. And internal leverage eventually controls external outcomes. This is also where temptation sharpens. Shortcuts appear. Distractions grow louder. Comfort starts negotiating. You will be tempted to loosen standards because no one would notice. That is the test. If your discipline depends on being seen, it is fragile. If it survives invisibility, it becomes permanent. Remember this rule. What you do repeatedly in private becomes what you are known for in public. The world only sees the final version. It never sees the thousands of silent decisions that built it. And that ignorance works in your favor, because when results arrive, they will call it luck, timing, talent. They will never understand the discipline it took to get there. That misunderstanding protects you. If this resonates, anchor it now. Comment this below. I hold myself. Then close the noise. Emotional control is dominance. Your emotions are not enemies. They are signals. But unchecked emotion is exposure, and exposure is weakness. The world is designed to provoke you, to pull reactions out of you, to make you reveal what you value, what hurts you, what moves you. Most men fall for it. They react instantly, defend themselves emotionally, explain, justify, explode, and in doing so, they hand over leverage. Machiavellian law is absolute. The one who controls the emotional frame controls the interaction. When you react emotionally, you confirm the other person's importance. You allow them to set tempo. You let them lead. Power never chases emotional relief. It delays response until advantage is clear. This is why emotional control feels unnatural at first. Your instincts want release, expression, validation. But restraint rewires authority. You feel anger, and you don't act on it. You feel disrespected, and you don't rush to correct it. You feel underestimated, and you don't rush to prove anything. That pause is not weakness, it is calculation. Emotional restraint buys clarity. Clarity reveals options. Options create dominance. Most people live inside their emotions. They speak from them, decide from them, expose themselves through them. You are learning to stand above them, not by suppressing emotion, but by refusing to let it drive action. This is where many lose themselves. They believe power means intensity, aggression, visibility, but intensity without control is volatility, and volatility is easy to manipulate. The calm individual in a tense room is always the most dangerous one, because calm cannot be rushed, cannot be baited, cannot be shaken. When others escalate, you slow down. When they seek reaction, you become unreadable. When they provoke, you observe. And observation always wins. Understand this psychological truth. People test boundaries emotionally before they challenge them structurally. They poke, they provoke, they disrespect lightly. They are checking to see if you are governed by impulse. The moment you react emotionally, you fail the test. Silence after provocation creates discomfort. Discomfort creates uncertainty. Uncertainty shifts power. They start recalibrating around you, not because you argued, but because you didn't. This is why emotional discipline terrifies people. They can't read you, they can't predict you, they can't control you. And what cannot be controlled is respected. This control extends inward as well. You don't celebrate too early. You don't despair too deeply. You don't let wins inflate ego or losses poison focus. You remain centered because extremes make you sloppy, and sloppiness leaks power. You don't need to feel strong to act strong. You don't need to feel confident to move decisively. You don't need emotional certainty to execute correctly. You act based on principle, not mood. That is dominance. If this is aligning with you, mark it now. Comment this below. I decide before I react, then return to silence. Pressure is not the enemy, it is the test. When pressure increases, truth surfaces, masks crack, discipline shows, weak structures collapse. Most men train only for comfort. They build habits that function when conditions are ideal, remove certainty, and they unravel. You are training for the opposite. Pressure does not create weakness, it exposes what was already there. Machiavellian reality is simple. Authority belongs to the one who remains functional when conditions worsen. When stakes rise, people look for stability, not reassurance, not motivation. Stability. This is where hierarchy forms naturally. Under pressure, some panic, some overreact, some seek consensus, some freeze. You slow down, you narrow focus, you reduce noise, you execute fundamentals. This contrast is unmistakable. While others become emotional, you become precise. While others rush decisions, you calculate. While others explain failures, you adjust quietly. Pressure sharpens your position. You don't resist it. You don't complain about it. You use it to separate yourself. Every crisis is a sorting mechanism. It reveals who needs direction and who is direction. People begin to defer without asking. They look to you without realizing why. They align their pace with yours. Not because you demanded it, but because you remained composed when they didn't. This is how influence forms without force. Pressure also tests internal structure. When exhaustion hits, do you compromise standards? When setbacks stack, do you abandon principles? When time tightens, do you cut corners? Most do, because pressure magnifies impatience. But impatience is the enemy of power. You learn to absorb delay without frustration, to accept resistance without resentment, to endure discomfort without self-pity. This endurance is rare, and rarity creates value. Understand this psychological law. People respect those who can carry weight without broadcasting strain. Complaining leaks weakness. Explaining leaks insecurity. Performing stress invites interference. You carry pressure quietly, not because it's easy, but because exposure is costly. Pressure also attracts opposition. As your position stabilizes, others feel threatened. They test you harder. They provoke more directly. They challenge subtly. This is confirmation, not conflict. Resistance increases only when momentum becomes visible. Your response remains unchanged. No escalation, no emotional reaction, no public defense. You don't fight pressure head-on. You outlast it. Pressure has a limit. People don't. Those who endure long enough inherit the space others abandon. This is how power accumulates without announcement. When the situation resolves, you are still standing, still functional, still controlled. Others remember this. They don't remember speeches. They remember who stayed solid when things got heavy. That memory turns into respect. That respect turns into authority. If you understand this, mark it. Comment this below. Pressure clarifies my position. The moment results appear, the game changes. When you were invisible, you were ignored. When progress was quiet, you were tolerated. But when outcomes become undeniable, attention turns sharp. Visibility is not validation, it is exposure. And exposure attracts resistance. Machiavellian law. Power is challenged only after it is proven real. This is why enemies don't appear at the beginning. They appear when your position threatens theirs. At first, they watched in silence. Then they doubted quietly. Now they speak. Criticism increases. Intentions are questioned. Your past is inspected, not because they care about truth, but because your presence disrupts hierarchy. Understand this clearly. People tolerate ambition until it produces results. Once results appear, comparison becomes unavoidable, and comparison breeds hostility. They feel smaller in your shadow, not because you tried to dominate, but because you refused to stay where they were comfortable. This is where many misstep. They try to explain themselves, soften their image, reduce their presence to appear harmless. That is retreat. Power does not shrink to survive scrutiny. It stabilizes. You do not respond to every accusation. You do not correct every false assumption. You do not enter debates designed to drain focus. Visibility demands restraint. Every word you speak now carries weight. Every reaction becomes signal. Every explanation invites interpretation. So you choose silence selectively. You let patterns speak instead of statements, consistency instead of defense, outcomes instead of arguments. People watch more closely now. They measure tone. They analyze posture. They look for cracks. This is why internal control becomes non-negotiable. Any emotional leak will be amplified. Any inconsistency will be highlighted. Any hesitation will be exploited. You move slower but sharper. You speak less but precisely. You choose battles, but only the decisive ones. Visibility also reveals allies, not supporters. Allies. Supporters cheer when it's easy. Allies align when it's risky. They don't flatter. They don't announce loyalty. They position quietly. Pay attention. Who respects boundaries without being told? Who doesn't overstep familiarity? Who adjusts behavior without explanation? These are not admirers. These are observers with intelligence. Machiavellian awareness sharpens here. You don't trust praise. You analyze behavior. Compliments are cheap. Alignment is expensive. Visibility is also where discipline must evolve. What you tolerated privately cannot be tolerated publicly. Loose habits get exposed. Inconsistencies get magnified. Shortcuts become liabilities. You refine, not to impress, but to protect position. Remember this rule. As visibility increases, margin for error decreases. You don't panic under this pressure. You adapt to it, because visibility is proof of advancement. Resistance confirms relevance. Attention signals influence. If no one is watching you, you are not a factor. If eyes are on you now, it means you've crossed an invisible line. Do not step back. If this resonates, mark it. Comment this below. I don't retreat under attention. Hold steady, because the next section is where loyalty is tested and illusion finally breaks. Loyalty is rare. Alignment is real. Loyalty is a romantic idea. Power operates on alignment. Most men confuse presence with commitment, words with reliability. History proves otherwise. Machiavellian truth is ruthless. People stay loyal to advantage, not individuals. This is not betrayal. It is nature. When you were unknown, people were curious. When you were rising, people were supportive. Now that you are positioned, motives become visible. Some stay close for access. Some stay for protection. Some stay because leaving is costly. Observe, don't judge. Loyalty demands sacrifice. Alignment demands calculation. Very few are willing to sacrifice. Many are willing to calculate. You must learn the difference. The dangerous mistake is expecting loyalty where only alignment exists. Expectation creates vulnerability. Vulnerability invites disappointment. You remove expectation and clarity appears. Watch behavior under stress. Watch consistency when reward disappears. Watch silence when defending you offers no benefit. This is where truth reveals itself. Those who vanish quietly were never committed to you, only to the benefits around you. Those who stay calm, stable, and predictable are not emotional allies. They are structural ones. Machiavellian awareness sharpens here. You stop demanding loyalty. You stop asking for reassurance. You stop interpreting behavior personally. You interpret it strategically. People align when your direction benefits them. They disengage when it doesn't. This information is valuable. It tells you where leverage exists and where it does not. You don't confront disloyalty emotionally. You adjust positioning. You don't accuse. You reassign access. You don't argue. You restructure proximity. Power does not explode. It reorganizes. Another truth: loyalty spoken loudly is often compensation. Reliability expressed quietly is real. Those who announce devotion often seek validation. Those who move correctly don't need to announce anything. Pay attention to consistency, not enthusiasm. Who shows up without reminders? Who respects boundaries naturally? Who doesn't panic when conditions change? These are indicators of alignment strong enough to rely on, not because they care, but because your direction overlaps with theirs, and that is enough. You don't need loyalty to build power. You need predictable alignment. Predictability allows planning. Planning allows expansion. Expansion creates dominance. Loyalty may come later. It often does, after success becomes stable. But early loyalty is rare and fragile. Do not build systems that depend on it. Build systems that function regardless of emotion. This is why kings trust structure over sentiment. You reward alignment. You limit access when alignment weakens. You remain neutral emotionally, because neutrality keeps judgment clear. The moment you take disengagement personally, you lose position. Remember this rule: those who leave early would have left at the peak. Their absence now saves you instability later. If this is landing, mark it. Comment this below. I value alignment over promises. Then continue forward. When respect becomes inevitable. There comes a moment when resistance stops being loud, when doubt loses confidence, when silence around you changes texture. This is not admiration. This is calculation. The world does not suddenly believe in you. It accepts reality. Respect is never emotional. It is strategic. Machiavellian law. People respect what cannot be ignored, disrupted, or removed. By now, your presence alters decisions. Your absence creates gaps. Your consistency has trained expectations. They no longer ask if you are capable. They ask how far you will go. This is the shift. Earlier, they questioned your methods. Now they study them. Earlier, they doubted your patience. Now they fear your restraint. Earlier, they waited for you to fail. Now they adjust to you succeeding. This is when power must become quieter, not louder. Most men sabotage themselves here. They celebrate publicly. They speak loosely. They relax standards. They confuse arrival with safety. That mistake collapses empires. Respect attracts imitation, challenge, and envy simultaneously. Every move now sends signals beyond your intent. This is where discipline must mature. You do not seek validation from respect. You do not change posture because eyes are on you. You do not soften to appear generous. Generosity without structure invites erosion. You remain consistent. The same boundaries, the same pace, the same restraint. Because respect is fragile when fed by emotion and durable when anchored in predictability. Understand this psychological truth. People feel safest under those who do not change with circumstance. Unpredictable kindness creates anxiety. Stable authority creates order. You do not overreact to praise. You do not correct fear. You let perception settle naturally. Silence here is different from earlier silence. This silence communicates finality. You no longer need to prove intent. Your history has already spoken. At this stage, resistance becomes indirect. People won't oppose you openly. They will maneuver around you. Test boundaries quietly. Probe for weakness subtly. You notice, but you don't confront impulsively. You allow patterns to reveal themselves fully before you respond structurally. Power at this level is not aggressive, it is preventative. You remove instability before it grows. You limit exposure before it spreads. You adjust systems instead of addressing individuals. This is where leadership becomes architecture. People now follow without instruction, not because they admire you, but because your direction reduces friction. And that is the highest form of influence. Respect that comes from fear fades. Respect that comes from consistency endures. Remember this rule. When respect becomes inevitable, visibility becomes optional. You can disappear again, and the structure still holds. That is real power. If this resonates, mark it now. Comment this below. My presence changes outcomes. The crown that needs no permission. At the end, there is no announcement, no ceremony, no apology. There is only acceptance. The world does not bow because it understands you. It bows because it has no alternative. This is the final truth. Power that asks to be recognized is not power. Power that endures long enough becomes the rule. You did not arrive here by force. You arrived through consistency that outlasted resistance, through restraint that survived provocation, through structure that held when pressure tried to fracture it. Now the crown fits, not because you wanted it, but because everything else failed without you. You are no longer arguing your value. You are no longer correcting perception. You are no longer seeking space. Space reorganized around you. This is what being untouchable actually means. Not invincible, not adored, untouchable. Because removing you would cost too much. Challenging you would destabilize too many systems. Ignoring you would create friction no one wants to manage. So they adapt. They speak carefully now. They move differently around you. They consult without admitting it. You didn't demand respect. You engineered inevitability. And now comes the discipline that matters most. You do not let this moment change you. No victory laps. No public satisfaction. No emotional release. Satisfaction is private. Control remains public. You remember the silence, the isolation, the doubt, not with resentment, with clarity. Because the path that built you is the path that will keep you sharp. You do not loosen standards. You do not expand access recklessly. You do not confuse position with permanence. Everything that rises can fall, unless it is maintained with the same discipline that built it. So you stay measured, you stay deliberate, you stay controlled. The crown is not something you wear, it is something you are. And kings like this don't announce themselves. They don't posture, they don't threaten, they move, and the world adjusts. Before we close, mark this final mindset publicly. Comment this now. I became inevitable. Let it sit there as a record, not for them, for you. If this series sharpened your thinking, if it trained your restraint, if it prepared you to move without support, then, like this video, subscribe to Machiavelli's Discipline, turn on notifications, because this isn't motivation, it's conditioning, and once conditioned, the world doesn't get a choice anymore. Remaining untouchable. Reaching power is loud internally. Keeping it is silent. This is where most fall. They mistake position for permanence. They believe respect is a finish line. They relax. That is how control leaks. Machiavellian truth is unforgiving. Power decays the moment vigilance fades. You are not untouchable because you won once. You are untouchable because you never stop managing variables. Now the real discipline begins. You assume nothing is guaranteed. Not influence. Not alignment, not relevance. You stay alert without paranoia, measured without hesitation, detached without becoming careless. You do not cling to authority. Clinging reveals fear of loss. You treat power like weight. It must be carried daily or it weakens you. This stage requires a different kind of restraint. You resist the urge to dominate unnecessarily. Excess control creates enemies faster than silence ever did. You allow space, but not ambiguity. Freedom, but not disorder. Access, but not familiarity. Familiarity erodes boundaries. Boundaries preserve position. You remain selective with trust. Trust is not given because time passed. It is given because patterns held. And patterns are always more honest than promises. At this level, danger is subtle. It comes as comfort, as praise, as reassurance that you've made it. That voice, is the real enemy. The moment you believe you've arrived, you stop sharpening, and dull power invites replacement. So you continue to observe quietly. You notice shifts early. You adjust before friction becomes visible. You don't wait for conflict. You prevent it structurally. You don't announce change. You implement it. You don't explain decisions emotionally. You let outcomes justify them. This keeps authority intact. Remember this principle. The strongest position is one that does not need to be defended. If you find yourself explaining too much, you've already moved too close to the edge. Distance preserves clarity. Clarity preserves control. You also learn when not to act. Not every challenge deserves response. Not every provocation deserves correction. Not every disagreement deserves resolution. Selective inaction is power. It denies opponents momentum. It forces them to expose themselves further. It lets the environment resolve conflict in your favor. Time becomes your ally now. You think long-term while others think immediate. You absorb minor losses to secure major stability. You sacrifice speed for certainty. This patience is misunderstood, and misunderstanding protects you. You are no longer chasing respect. You are managing equilibrium. And equilibrium, once established, is extremely difficult to disrupt. Before we close this final layer, anchor this mindset. Comment this below. I maintain what I built. Say it with intention, because becoming powerful changes your life. But staying untouchable changes history. And history only remembers those who held the crown without ever needing to remind the world they wore it. You are not here by accident. If you stayed until this point, it means something in you refused comfort, refused shortcuts, refused approval. Most people listen until it challenges them. You listened until it sharpened you. That already separates you. Understand this before we close. Power is not loud. It is not emotional. It is not desperate to be seen. It moves calmly while others rush. It stays silent while others explain. It holds direction while others seek permission. This is the mindset you've been conditioning, not to dominate everyone, but to never be dominated again. You don't chase respect. You design yourself so respect becomes unavoidable. You don't need crowds. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You need structure, control, consistency. And once those are in place, the world adjusts whether it wants to or not. Now mark this moment, not for them, for yourself. Comment this below and mean it. I don't need support to lead. Let it sit there as proof of commitment. If this series aligned your thinking, if it strengthened your restraint, if it prepared you to move without approval, then like this video, subscribe to Machiavelli's Discipline, turn on notifications, because this channel isn't for everyone. It's for those building something others can't interfere with. Stay sharp, stay controlled, and remember, the strongest men don't announce power.